Good morning, everyone! A new year is upon us, and a new year comes with a new TCG set, which comes with a boatload of new cards. Now, are those cards any good? Ascended Heroes is here, and it's definitely a set of all time. But it's also a massive set of all time. One of the biggest sets of all time. That's a lot of it. It's so big, pretty much each elemental type has more than one EX. Some of them buff other reactions of previous patches. Some are needed by previous cards to really pop off. And others, well, they're definitely here. And we're gonna sort through it all, for what's careful at least, here, live, and hopefully before the set comes out. This is Hector from Icarus Plays, and if you give me your time, we'll comb through the good, the bad, and what looks fun to play. Grass Gang and starter stands, rise up! We're finally getting the Legend ZA starters. Starting off with Mega Meganium EX. That's right folks, everyone's least favorite starter, for whatever reason, has arrived and graced the grass type with some major impact. Yeah, we're starting off with a banger, because Mega Meganium is actually a grass type that can potentially do things. Here's how. Mega Meganium is a stage 2 grass type DPS with 360 HP and 1 attack. She, along with the other starters, do not concern herself with abilities or a filler first attack. As of starting a new game, she gets straight to the point, swings on whatever just so happens to be nearby. The attack in question that she's swinging with is called Giant Bouquet. It does 70 damage, don't look at me like that, let her look, plus 50 more damage for each grass energy attached to her. So assuming she does the bare minimum 3 energy, it's going to be doing an additional 150 damage, leading up to a total of 220 damage. Don't look at me like that, she's still cooking. Now, I know that's not the best damage, but just kidding. We still have Mega Evolutions of Wild Growth Meganium to buff that damage even further. It's a good thing that she's surrounded by flowers, because Meganium blossoms here, and Mega Meganium blossoms even harder, because with her wild growth, the bare minimum energy required will suddenly be 6 energy, meaning she's doing 300 additional damage. She truly is the giant bouquet that burns the sky, and with the burning sky comes the rustling winds. They were out of Apocalypse Locust, so they sent them off instead. Rustling Wind Dustbox is annoying, I think. She has an ability where once per turn you can remove an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon and put it back to your hand. It can be a pretty good setback that you can get multiple out, just one that makes it pretty much a non-issue, but having multiple repeating crushing hammers can sour anyone's game plan. Her attack is pretty decent too. For 2 grass energy you can paralyze and put the defending Pokemon to sleep with 110 damage on top of that. It's possibly worth noting that she has a strategy with Beautifly to get her out faster, but that's a lot of moving parts, especially since he isn't much to write home about at the moment. On top of both Pokemon being stage 2s, Stun is mid, and should be a basic Pokemon attack. Temporal Forces Litten has that same attack, just with a different name. And Energy Shot isn't that great because most tourney decks don't run that much energy. Though both can be done for 1 grass energy, so if you want to find a way to run the dynamic duo, I don't blame you. What I will blame you for is using Charizard in any capacity. You mean to tell me that not only is he a beat stick, but on top of that he gets a sniper version of him too? And it does enough damage to knock out a stage 1 EX or heaven forbid a basic Mega EX? Yeah, to no one's surprise, Charizard got another buff. But thankfully so did most of the types this patch. Mega Charizard Y is a fire-type sub-DPS with 360 HP and 1 attack. They're really going for the simple and satisfying route for this time for the EXs, huh? His attack, Explosion Y, costs 3 energy, gets type of Pokemon, active red bench for 280 damage, as long as you detach 3 energy from the user. Theoretically, you could run Mega Charizard X and Y along with Oricorio, Firestarter, and even Ember if you hate yourself. You can use X as your active DPS and Y for your support sniper, and theoretically you could also run Charizard as a late game backup attacker too. Well, this Pokemon has much to do. Especially when there are starters like Mega Ember who barely have EXs outside their introductory games to themselves. And well, thanks to ZA, he's here and he hits pretty hard like a Royal Emperor should. His Highness is a whopping beefcake of a fire-type stage 2 DPS with 380 HP and a pretty powerful attack. Unlike Meganium where you need to understand quantum physics to do the big number, Emperor is just the big number. His attack is also 3 energy and does 320 damage, with the drawback of doing 60 damage to himself. Depending on the game state, this could be pretty detrimental, but since we have Oricorio, Baby Ember, and Wally's Compassion, it's something that can easily be navigated around. Throw some buffers here and there, and another hitter is entered the fray. As he was my starter in ZA, he will likely be my starter for this next big set, and I will once again not beat the Fire-type main allegations. I will also not beat the Camera Up apologist allegations. You get a new camera that's basically just a worse version of Mega Camera Up DX in terms of numbers, but is overall still a single price risk. You could probably run 2 of the babies and 2 of the big boys in a Camera Up deck. You'll still need Volcanion or Volcarona and the like, but it's another option if you're trying to make the boy work. Arceus knows I am. Arceus was also trying to figure out how to make Feraligatr even cooler. He failed. But hey, we got a Mega Feraligatr, and with that, a Mega Feraligatr EX. For what it's worth, the card art definitely saves the design quite a bit. He's a Water-type Stage 2 DPS Pokemon with 370 HP and 1 attack. His attack at base does 200 damage for 3 energy, with potentially doing 200 more damage if the active Pokemon has any damage counters on him. There aren't very many Water-specific cards that support this gimmick, but Risky Roots can get the job done just fine. Though in terms of energy acceleration, once back leaves rotation, you won't have very many ways to accelerate energy for now. So despite having the biggest number, he may be the hardest one to get going. You get help from Crispin, the boy Blaziken, and other energy assistants depending on if you want to run a second energy type. I'd probably recommend doing so since like others, he has a colorless energy slot in his attack cost. Or if you're banking on being behind, Counter Gate can be a huge help, especially since 200 repeatable damage isn't anything to sneeze at. Much unlike the cold air that Mega Frostlass brings to the table. The new Frostlass also brings a new Snorunt that has 70 HP, meaning your freezing shard enjoyers can have that much more ease of access. Thankfully, Munkidori still needs an S-Ball. But enough about that. Mega Frostlass EX is a Stage 1 debuffer / sub-DPS hybrid with 310 HP and 2 attacks. The first attack, Rebellion, does 50 damage times the number of cards in the opponent's hand, as if Frostlass needed more benefits from your opponent bricking. With the baby one still being incredible anti-ability supports, constantly dealing damage to anything that even looks like it could be annoying, you now have a damage dealing Frostlass that basically tells you to stop playing the game by insta-killing wherever you felt like playing at the time. On top of our second attack, Absolute Snow. This attack does 150 damage, costs 3 energy, and forces the defending Pokemon to sleep. So on top of the regular Frostlass monkey business, you have the leader of the pack beating you with an Ice Break that she swore was a snowball until you're either knocked out or unconscious, to where she'll probably just beat you up some more. I know that she's supposed to be uninviting, but good grief. Thankfully, Frostmoth is very inviting. She has a fleet-footed type ability where if she's in the active spot, you can draw a card. Your opponent draws one too, but if it were Frostlass, it makes her Ice Break even stronger. It's about as strong as Pokemon thinks Voltorb is, with Iono's Voltorb being the powerhouse of her deck and now Voltorb EX. It's like they forgot Electro did more than just blow up and cosplay as Master Ball. I don't know what they were cooking with this one because this mon is, definitely something. He's a basic sub-DPS electric type Pokemon with 170 HP and 1 attack. His attack costs 3 energy and does a base of 100 with an additional 100 damage for each hit you get before you get Tails. He's kinda like a Diet Kangaskhan. While not very tanky, he can be pretty explosive. If you like glass cannon type cards, he can potentially do numbers, but RNG dependent cards like this usually fail when you need them most. At least they always do with me. But if you're willing to test your luck and you're able to pull it off, he can be a really fun backup attacker with an explosive start. And Mega Electros EX can act as the explosive finisher. This slippery boy can be insanely versatile if used properly with his pre-evolution Electric from the Black Bolt set. This way, he can swap from being a supporting Pokemon to being a pretty okay debuffer. Mega Electros EX is a Stage 2 debuffer sub-DPS Pokemon with 350 HP and 2 attacks. His first attack, Split Bomb, does 60 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon for 2 energy. This attack isn't really much to write home about, especially because Electivire EX does the same thing but isn't a 3 prize risk. Spreading damage is always helpful, but with Terra Pokemon still being around, flat damage isn't nearly as good as damage counters. But I'm honestly okay with that. Effect damage was a mistake. What's not a mistake is the second attack, Disaster Shock. It does 190 damage, costs 3 energy, and for the low price of his angles, he can paralyze the opponent by discarding 2 energy. There's a couple ways you can run this actually. Primarily you're going to want to have one of these out with at least 1 electric to help recharge the second attack. You could also give him Power Glass or even shove in a Blaziken. Yes, it's a long list, this guy's coming soon. You could also shove in a bunch of disruption cards like Meddling Memo, Grabber, Boss's Orders, Depot Catcher Hariyama, and even more. He's a bit rougher on the edges, but he can potentially be very annoying. About as annoying as your average Canary fan. Thankfully, Heliolisk is exempt from this rule, because he can't speak English. But when Canary enters the chat, you best believe he'll rile himself up with the best of them. He'll attach 2 electric energies from your deck to himself whenever you play Canary. As from hand, he'll be set up as an RNG-dependent, bad backup attacker. I'll go into Canary later, but with how she works, at least it won't be difficult to get out and set up. If you have difficulty setting up a general or just have a really bad opening hand, Tapu Koko can help with that 5 support hand you open with. This attack lets you discard your hand and draw cards. Not only does this only cost 1 energy, but you can use it going first. It's no quick sign, but anything to get you out of supporter purgatory is nice to have. Raichu is in his own special purgatory, the mid-purgatory. Hopefully his inevitable Mega card will change that, but just like the others, there's not much to write home about. The second attack ain't bad for a single prize, but if he's giving electric types 3 energy okay damage attacks that involve some kind of discard or secondary disadvantage. This one is no exception. 150 isn't a lot to sneeze at, and with the Dynamotor back in motion, it can make for an easier, safer ride. Kinda like what Miraidon does for your journey in Paldea. And unlike other Miraidon cards, this one actually utilizes the Terra mechanic. What is his element? Electricity. Yeah, Terra's final hurrah, and it's once again same type Terras. Why even give him the funny hat if you weren't going to do anything interesting like make him a fire type or something? Ah well, I guess they just couldn't let go of the poor bicycle. At least they didn't put him in Stellar Prison. But seeing as this is potentially Terra Pokemon's final impact, surely there was something noteworthy about it, right? Well, Miraidon EX is a Terra Electric type basic sub-DPS Pokemon with 220 HP and 2 attacks. The first one costs 1 energy and does 40 damage. Now, is that a good attack? Well, it depends on who you're asking. But we're not here to play 20 questions, we're playing 60 cards! But seriously though, the attack I'm looking at is the premium attack. Adgeron Bolt. It costs 3 energy, yay, and does 120 damage, and a 120 more if the defending Pokemon is in EX. So if you're fighting an EX, he does more damage than base set Miraidon, at the cost of no tandem unit. In terms of utility, it's definitely a downgrade, but its attack is decent. But Gal eventually can do that with less energy, and you're probably already running Joltik if you're playing an electric type deck. Despite that, he can make a decent backup attacker, as if electricity doesn't already have enough of those, including Miraidon. Psychic types also have more than their fair share of backup attackers, but it's nice to see Pokemon like Azumarill get their time to shine as an EX. Obviously it's to show the newer Pokemon, but it's not often we get non-starter Gen 1, 2, 3 EXs that aren't Megas. And since she's not a Mega, she's likely going to be in the mid category of things, but she's not without her tools. For starters, she's a Stage 1 Psychic type DPS Pokemon with 1 ability and 1 attack. Her ability, Bubble Bundle, allows her to draw power from her bench and move energy to her, which ain't too bad. It's a lot like Weirder V's Frontier Road, and similar to its attack, she does damage off of the number of energy attached to her. Unfortunately, unlike Ogerpon, the only post-rotation Psychic accelerators around right now are Steven's Metagross, Metagardevoir, and Grumpig. While not bad options, especially with cards like Rewind Clock for Grumpig, for the foreseeable future, she'll have to be sentenced to Gardevoir jail or run Zatu. The F to G will have to wait and see. Too bad, Assassin's Magic Miss Mackie will smack it before you can see what's coming. You can do 60 damage and another 60 encounters to a bench Pokemon given they have a status condition. Because you know, Dragon Ball absolutely needs another damage counter-based backup attacker. She can only pinpoint it to one bench Pokemon as opposed to spreading them around. Much like Rotom spreads out his ranks with Rotocall. There's a bit of a meme deck going out with Rotoms that rely on tools and the like. This bad boy acts as a precious trolley to any and all Rotoms, including the EX that lets you run multiple tools on each of them. As a mid-deck enjoyer, seeing cards that support smaller gimmicks is always appreciated, even if it did take 3 years for Reforming EX to be relevant. Speaking of Pokemon that are trying to be relevant, if you so much have thought of this Pokemon in the past year or two, you're lying. But with Spectrator's second attack, he'll cement himself as another second backup attacker. But he is an effect damager, and not only that, he magdumps 12 damage counters onto a single Pokemon. He's basically a one-track mind Lost Mine Sableye, minus the fact that it takes 3 years to set up. The only real drawback is that he discards all his energy after using it, but if you're a member of Guardy Gang, it doesn't matter. Especially when cards like Petty and Turo are still running around. ¿Y quien diseñó Mega Luchas en la forma es él? Mejor empezar a correr. Porque todos ustedes masacardos, mi niño. No hay razón, este básicos 250 HP, 3 primo Pokémon, tiene un ataque, eso es mal. No solamente hasta cuesta 3 energía, él solamente hace 120 daño. Ahora, él puede potencialmente aumentar el daño por 140 si hay un estado en jugar. De verdad, estos sonidos razonables suficientes. Hasta tu realizar, tienes que descartar el estado. Entonces, su aumento de potencia no es permanente, y porque su ataque cuesta 3 energy es también alto mantenimiento. Su habilidad no mucho mejor. Él es básicamente Pikachu EX, pero con suerte. ¿Quién es para? Colossal Star Cannon is another bench damager that can do some serious damage if you ignore the existence of Aurora. The drawback is that he needs 10 fighting energy in the discard for it to work. This can pair with Cynthia's Garchomp's Riot Buster and act as a secondary attacker, but even then most decks don't run that much energy unless you're me. If you do run a lot of energy, then Motop can help you fish for it by using his attack to shuffle your hand and draw 6 cards. That will probably Iona away, leaving you in a state to where you want to bury yourself. Like Stunfisk EX! Aside from Dirt, he likes to bury himself in damage counters so he can slap you for more damage. It's only 200, but that's a pretty standard basic EX damage, which is more than I can say for. With Mega Lucario being as good as he is, he works as another tool for Lucario's backup arsenal. He's a basic fighting type EX Pokemon with 2 10 HP and 2 attacks. First one, Big Bite does 30 damage and prevents the defending Pokemon from retreating. Not a whole lot, but, you know, insert anti-Voodoo whatever here. The second attack, Socket Trap, is the one we mentioned that does more damage if you have damage counters on him. It costs 3 energy, and if you run Risky Ruins, it's basically free real estate. Since he can have a lot to set up, you can kind of boss his orders and inhibit them with the first attack and continue to spam it. Then you can either swap into a healthier Pokemon like Lucario, or a jab and accelerate energy onto Stunfisk, swap back and start swinging. You could also run Blazing in the EX type with moving air on energy. He also benefits from Fighting Gong, Premium Power Pro, etc. He's definitely a card of all time, but Stunfisk fans can rejoice. The boy is in rotation and he ain't bad. Well, I can say he's rock solid, like Carbon and the 3 fans it has. Including myself. Usually cards with effects that make a dual type aren't that great, but with the boy adding Psychic to his typing, it increases his weakness skill considerably. Not only is he strong against Kangaskhan EX, but he can strike weakness against quite a few dark and electric types as well. The Psychic weakness can affect some fighting type Pokemon too. Sorry Stunfisk, but with this attack gaining 100 additional damage when severely behind, it can one-shot an unarmed Kong and a rival Lucario. Ironically, he can use it as just another tool for his kit. I still think I'd run Hariyama just because of the sheer consistent strength, but Carbon's not a bad option either. And just like every other Koraidon card to ever come out, he also gets delegated to not bad. Bro has 5 cards and all of them are at best mid. And once again, a new Terra Pokemon is same type Terra. So why even bother? Even though it's a weird flex, being Terra isn't that important. What's important is if he breaks the mold of mid. He doesn't. But he's better than some of the others. He's a basic Terra EX fighting type revenge DPS Pokemon with 230 HP and 2 attacks. His first attack, Deep Brown Fangs, does 50 damage at base and 120 more if a Pokemon was knocked out last turn. It costs 2 energy and has a revenge factor, which is always nice when you're at a disadvantage. 170 isn't much, but it's a decent chunk of damage you can use to finish off a Pokemon or two. But if you're trying to be a good bicycle and run people over, his second attack, Impact Blow, does 200 damage and reminds you why I hate basic Koraidon so much. I Dino cry every time. What's neat about this Koraidon is that because it's a Terra Pokemon, it can take advantage of Sparkling Crystal that can Impact Blow for 2 energy, or Sneaky Revenge KO for 1 energy. Plus, he's another one of Blaziken's biggest fans, and to me, that's always worth supporting. Other things that are worth supporting are your favorite musicians. Obstagoon isn't one of them, and Pierce still doesn't have a foot. But if you are Obstagoon's biggest fan, he's very worth investing in. Risky Ruins helps these cards do their thing so much easier. He's a stage 2, but as a single prize risk, you could probably run a deck with the Leg Trio and go ham on damage counter so Obstagoon can do his thing. Mega Scrafty EX can also help Obstagoon do his thing. He's a stage 1 dark type Mega debuffer Pokemon with 1 ability and 1 attack. The ability, Counter Cowl, lets Scrafty headbutt your opponent mid-attack. Meaning, whenever he takes damage from said attacks, he can place 5 damage counters on that attacking Pokemon. That alone boosts Obstagoon's damage from, well, 0, but he's already doing 350 damage and all you have to do is trip. Scrafty is a tried and true backup base player who supports the man in every way possible. And like a backup player, he, well, can be really annoying about it. That irritation is most potent in his attack, Outlaw Leg. Costs 3 energy, does 160, and is yet another better version of Luxray's Piercing Gaze. Its effect lets you choose a random card from the opponent's hand and discard it, as well as the top card from your opponent's deck. So on top of powering up Obstagoon, you can counter with Outlaw Leg and inhibit the opponent even further. Your opponent won't be the only one inhibited by this new set, because once again, whenever you get a new Pangoro, he's always inhibited by being the most card to ever card. Is it too much to ask for a Dark-type Pancham with Toxtricity and Jin-E can better synergize with him? Though I guess with Risky Ruins, that can buff his second attack, since he can do 200 damage if there's a Pancham on the bench with damage counters. Man, this really is the risky patch, huh? About as risky as banking on Petrite to clutch the win with his ability. If he's knocked out by an opponent's attack, you can search for a card and put it into your hand. So if you're ever out, you can immediately use it to save the day. You can potentially search for your Wallet's Compassion, Boss's Orders, whatever you may need. He's not the toughest nut to crack, but the fact that you can get something out of this walnut that isn't a dry and overrated food is very welcome, especially since Mecha Gengar can make it to where the opponent doesn't even get a prize card for it. More niche Pokemon getting EXs are also very welcome. Every Pokemon is someone's favorite. So to have one get an EX that's somewhat playable, we love to see it. Even though she's not much to write home about, Manbuzz EX is a stage 1 Dark-type debuffer Pokemon with 260 HP and 2 attacks. The first one, Bone Shot, costs 2 energy and does 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's fine, but her second attack, Vulture Claw, is another Luxray EX. Good lord, my boy's stay getting dragged. The only real drawback is that 3 energy cost, but as a stage 1, it's fine. That's all I can really say about her, especially since she exists in the same patch as Mega Scrafty, that can already do what she does and potentially synergize with another Pokemon. The attack itself does 160 damage unless you discard a random card from your opponent's hand. If you want to be extra annoying, you can run these two back to back. But to my dismay, there are better mill decks out there. This is a card you run because it's your favorite Pokemon. It's definitely playable, but I know it's going to be outclassed by a lot of other Pokemon out there. But that's never stopped me from running what I wanted, so don't let it stop you. Just like nothing can possibly stop the Supreme Overlord King Gambit, especially when he locks in and enters his flow state. His ability lets him swing for 30 additional damage for each prize card your opponent is taking. With his base 180 damage, that means he's doing the same damage as Charizard EX for one prize. Evil doesn't die, it reinvents itself. But you know what? I like King Gambit, so I'm okay with this. However, I'm not okay with Pikachu clones getting terrible EXs. I don't know why they insist on making their mascots the most unusable bulks ever bulk, which is a shame because he's another niche Pokemon that doesn't get a whole lot of rep. Though in his defense, he can paralyze for 1 energy if the coin flip works for you, and he definitely does damage. He's a basic metal type EX debuff with 190 HP and 2 attacks. The first attack, Tingly Needle? Alright, well, for 1 energy it does 20 damage, and if you land on heads, it equals paralysis. Second attack, Spiky Rollout, does 80 damage and 80 more damage if you use Spiky Rollout last turn. Assuming he survives that turn. Because it specifies that card specifically. Not if the move is at all. If it were just the attack and not the specific caster, it would be a much better attack. Even more so if there wasn't a cap. But as it stands, Togedemaru fails to get the ball rolling. Thankfully we can get the ball rolling and talk about a good Pokemon, is what I would say if I didn't already talk about Dragonite in my first hit review when I thought he and Charizard X were in the same patch. That was a very silly one. But what I didn't talk about, because I'm just not finding out about this, is his pre-evolution Dragonair, specifically for his ability, Evolution Guidance. If this Pokemon has an energy attached, you can search for an evolution Pokemon and add it to your hand. Which is great, because Dragonite and other stage 2 decks can risk being mad clunky, so anything that reduces that clunky is extremely welcome in my book. High damage single prizes like Noivern are also welcome in my book. His enhanced blade can do 140 damage if he has a tool attached to him, and there's plenty of damage buffing tools that can boost that damage even further. I know there are probably better options for dragon attackers, but I feel like he's a sleeper hit for sure. And don't think he's not afraid to hit you when you sleep either, especially if you're careless about your energy. With her energy crutch attack, she can stack you for big numbers depending on the number of energy on your opponent's Pokemon, which is especially dangerous if you're a baby Meganium enjoyer. And if you're a Zangoose EX enjoyer, sorry. This is a basic DPS colorless Pokemon with 2 attacks. The first attack, Spike Draw, doesn't do 20 damage unless you draw 2 cards. It's basically a collect type attack with a hitbox. His second attack, Wild Scissors, does 180 damage with the drawback of it does 30 damage to itself. I ain't gonna sugarcoat this. Survivor Gang is eating good this time, because this is the worst EX of this patch by far. At least it would be if Mega Audino didn't exist. Bro, this card is Mega Audino is a basic colorless DPS Mega EX Pokemon with 270 HP and 2 attacks. The first attack, Corrida Volts, get over yourself, Game Freak, lets you flip a coin 3 times, and for each head you can switch for 2 basic energies from your deck and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. If this wasn't an attack, it'd be a pretty cool thing to have in your deck, but the fact that it's tied to an alternating attack and is linked to RNG means that you could potentially risk 3 prizes and get nothing. If I'm being generous, if your RNG is somewhat salvageable, it's not a bad way to salvage some energy onto whatever Pokemon you think will need it. It ain't gonna be her, that's for sure. Their second attack, Ear Force, yes that's what it's called, does 20 damage at base, and does 20 more for each energy attached to... wait. Your opponent's active Pokemon? Okay, so, full disclosure, I was looking up the card to proofread it because I initially thought she was going to be a worse Okapon to where she did damage based off both the active Pokemon's energy, but no, she doesn't make it bad. I'm literally finding this out as I typed, which is normal because I make mistakes from time to time. But this hit especially hard because I already knew she was bad, but I had no idea just how bad things really were. On top of the fact that this attack costs 3 energy, the method of acceleration is poor, and with how other decks function, she's only doing 80 damage assuming the opponent also has a 3 energy cost attack. Even less if they have a Sparking Crystal on a Terra Pokemon. And, if you didn't catch it the first time, she's a Mega that costs 3 prizes! It's a shame how far Mega Audino fell. The rubber they used to print her could have been used for Nintendo Labo. At least then Nintendo would be forced to pretend to care about her. But no! She had to be printed here. They're garbage HP and 2 wreck attacks, who also exists in the same world as Mega Halucha, who can one-shot you even without weakness. Ugh. This is definitely one of the few cards that I'll look at and say it's not worth running, even if it's your favorite. Which is a shame, because I really like Mega Audino as a Pokemon. However, if Pikachu is your favorite, he actually gets buffed with the Light Ball. Free Pikachu EX card that this is attached to does 50 more damage to other EXs. Stellar Pikachu can now be high maintenance and do damage. And it makes other Pikachu, well, playable? And that's all for doing. Kinda like the ongoing debate for who's the best electric-themed streamer. It's Ayano, it's not even close. But she's had her time in the sun since the beginning of the Scarlet and Violet sets. So now the actual best electric-type streamer is... Kanari's granddad. But Terragon won't have a card until the next set, so by default it's Kanari. For good reason too. She lives up to her theme that she can help search for 4 electric Pokemon to put them into the hand. Ironically enough, you can also search for Iona Pokemon as well. Real recognizes real, I suppose. Dragonite also recognizes real and created a personalized way to defend himself. That's why he crafted the Thick Scale. With this equipped, Dragon-type Pokemon take 50 less damage from Grass, Fire, Water, and Electric Pokemon. Sometimes instead of joining the meta, you gotta understand the meta and counter it as best you can. And to do that, you need a deep understanding of your own abilities. Anthe and Concordia are an incredible way to test one's understanding, because to even use them you need 6 different ENS Pokemon in play. But they can counter the meta by, well, blowing up your opponent's prize pool. You have ENS Darmanitan, ENS Zoroark EX, Reshiram, Zekrom, Klinkgang, and his new Vanillix, we'll get into those later. Same turn that you play this card, if one of ENS Pokemon, most likely Zoroark, knocks out a Pokemon, you can take 3 additional prize cards. If you can pull this off against the Mega, that's 6 right off the gate. Not only does this mean N has a way to fight back, it gives Mega Audino a purpose. As a test dummy. This card you'd have to be an absolute dummy to ignore. Imagine an actual nerf to Dragapult. Nothing superficial like damage counter negation or anything you'd have to pay out the rear for just to put on the bench and watch gather dust. Nah, this actually makes it harder for Dragapult to attack. And increases the attack cost of Terra Pokemon by a single colorless energy. That means even with Sparking Crystal, Dragapult players are now forced to attach for turn like an adult. Wait, this is a nerf to Cerulean Shoe. Wait, I take it back. Please ignore this card. Pokepad is insane! And shouldn't be ignored in any capacity. This card lets you search for a Pokemon so long as it's not a Roblox. In a single prize deck like Missy's Gyarados, it basically removes the need for an Ultra Ball, or even more so, Yugurana's of current rotation, Nest Ball, Buddy Buddy, Ultra Ball, and Pokepad. That's 4 different Pokemon searches that are worth using that you can run in the same deck. And that's not even considering supporters either. The real issue is not being able to use it to search for Feds or prominent basic EX. But even without that restriction, it's still going to be one of the most versatile searches of the new format. Citrus, unfortunately, is not a versatile searcher. It's a top 6 card searcher that can attach an energy to a Pokemon should you find one. It's not good, but it's still better than Mega Odd. Trade is the obligatory draw-through rival. That's it. Thankfully, that's it for supporters, at least. This set not only brings in a bunch of new Pokemon, viability notwithstanding, but continuing off of training together in Destined Rivals, we got even more Trainers Pokemon, featuring 2 new trainers and some additional support for older ones. It's a big day for anyone not named Arvin. The first new trainer is the coveted Gym Leader Erica. This time we invited her instead of the other way around. It comes with a slew of Grass-type Pokemon like a Vileplume EX. Basic looking flower is anything but, because not only does she debuff the opponent with her attack, she also helps the rest of her team blossom with her ability. Vileplume EX is a stage 2 grass type support / debuff for a hybrid Pokemon with 310 HP, 1 ability, and 1 attack. Her ability, Envious Scent, lets her heal 30 HP from each of her teammates. We live for anti-monkey slander in this household, especially because it's one of the few trainers' abilities that don't discriminate on whether or not it's that trainer's Pokemon. She can be teched into other Tenki Boy decks, or as a way to heal self-damage with like Emboar if need be. With an Arnso Tenki, like Erica's Victory Bell, probably won't benefit too much from it later on, since once big boys are set up, they'll likely do loads of damage. But once the stage is set, so will she. With her main attack, Mysterious Rondo, does 40 damage times the number of Erica's Pokemon in play, meaning this mon can stop a Pokemon for 240 total should the condition be met. Erica's Tangela can help with setting the stage for this ability. Colorful Riot lets you search for an Erica's Pokemon and put it into your hand. This team seems to be centered around Victory Bell smacking the opponent as often as they can, while Tangela makes it stronger, and Vileplume can help solve for time while also smacking your opponent's Pokemon. I forgot about Vileplume's attack. Vileplume EX's Powder Bloom does 160 damage, poisons the active Pokemon and puts him to sleep. This sort of attack, while hitting hard, can also limit your opponent's movement by both inflicting them with narcolepsy and giving them the sniffles. This can help you buy time for Tangela to help set the stage, and for Victory Bell to swing as hard as possible. Despite only having 3 Pokemon, she's a pretty solid team comp that makes her super simple to build around. On top of the fact that she has access to cards like Bug Catching Set to add even more to her garden, she's a trainer that can potentially blossom into something unique. Larry's trainer archetype is also a unique choice. But then again, he became a fan favorite pretty quickly with how relatable he was. Life isn't always pay bills and die. Sometimes it's taking a stroll with your favorite Pokemon, or buying way too many cards, going into debt, and paying that off. I really hope this team's good. I bet a lot of money. The 5-star of Larry's team, Larry's the Dunsparce, is a stage 1 colorless DPS EX Pokemon with 1 attack. It costs 3 energy and does 8 damage for each head you flip on a coin. Yeah, I'm definitely going into that. Because not only is attack locked behind RNG, it's limited to the number of energy attached to him. And if you're doing the bare minimum, it still does more damage than Mega Audino. 6 times as much if your RNG is perfect, but if it's somewhere in the middle, you're likely scoring 80 to 60 damage, occasionally landing a crit once in a while. Now, 3+ energy is a big ask, but Komala can absolutely turbo that in spades, especially if there are multiple on the bench. His ability to let you attach another energy from your hand onto your active Larry's Pokemon. So if you really like Larry's the Dunsparce, Komala can help get more spins and hopefully do more passable damage. One of Larry's Pokemon that does some pretty sweat-weather damage is going to be Larry's Staraptor, especially if he has a status condition. The first attack does 60 at base, and 160 if he's either burned or poisoned. And if Kamala has a field day, his second attack does 150 to the active and 50 to a benched. It does cost 3 energy and has the drawback of discarding 2 from Staraptor, but I can see this card doing stuff despite this. The Dunsparce is definitely Larry's mascot, but his Staraptor is his locked-in Pokemon. And in order to be locked in, requires a ton of bravery, and he makes sure your opponents stay locked in by nullifying their ability to retreat with his first attack. It costs 2 energy and does 50 damage. Second attack is alright though, does a decent chunk for 120, but does self-damage. It also costs 3 energy. Honestly, you could probably live without this Pokemon on your team, but as a single prize attacker, it's definitely an option. And speaking of options, good lord, and has some pretty loaded new ones, and all of them are required for Anthea Concordia. But if you value your mental health, here are some options that you can swap in and out as you see fit. Starters, we have En's Vanillux. We can fit in just about any damage counter heavy deck as well, specifically for his first attack, Snow Coating. Theoretically, since Zoroark is allergic to killing things, you can have a Vanillux set up to take its place, finish off the opponent, as well as whatever is on the bench that has damage counters. On top of that, only have a single prize risk in the active spot. He is a Sage too, but I think this mon has potential. But the Pokemon that has the most potential as a member of N's team is N Zekrom. Not only does he have 2 legendaries, but now he has added big number versatility. Zekrom's main attack does a whopping 250 for 2 energy, and since it's only Zoroark that's going to be using it, the only drawback is that it'll prevent Zoroark from attacking the following turn, which, while it's a good solid attack, kinda sucks that it debuffs himself. Because you're likely gonna want to debuff the opponent, which is what Team Rocket's Pokemon excel in doing, and these new members are no exception. And no one executes better, kinda, than Executor. His main attack can instantly knock out a Pokemon if all 3 coin flips are ahead. Really no better debuff than Doom. If you live in reality and know this will be very unlikely, you can always smack him with a double edge. And Team Rocket's Duck Trio has an edge of its own. He has an ability to where if your opponent moves to the bench, they put 2 damage counters on him. This can work if you're trying to fish for extra damage to cap off that Pokemon that always survives with 10 HP. Pair this with Team Rocket's Honchkrow, and you can have another single type beat stick for 2 energy and a bunch of expendable teammates. Which upon writing this I recently found out, most of these guys are Team Rocket wannabes and not the actual team, so they're actually extremely expendable. Which is good, because Honchkrow's main attack, Rocket Feathers, can do 60 times the number of Team Rocket supporters you discard. I don't know about Executor, but Duck Trio and Honchkrow together can make for a nasty team up. Whenever there's a new evil team, another hero emerges. Has 1 new Pokemon, but when you already have Zacian, you don't really need much else. And as our final new card for the set review, we're going to talk about Hop Trevenant. Specifically his revenge attack that does more damage when the Pokemon was previously knocked out by an attack. Paper, it ain't much by itself, but you gotta remember that Hop has a million different things that buffs his team damage. Snorlax, Postwick, Hop's Choice Band can drastically increase his damage. And with as damaging as the set is to my mental health, overall this set is incredibly massive with a ton of options ranging from incredibly strong, mid but playable, to borderline masochism. I can't believe they did this to my boys. What? All of these plus reprints of very prominent cards, which means their rarity will be a lot less, means Fez will no longer be $20. There's a few really good search options that may replace Nest Ball and even Ultra Ball for some decks. And there's even a new Trainers Pokemon, which was something I didn't expect in the slightest. Needless to say, I'm very excited to see what my boys Mega Dragonite and Mega Ember have to offer in the game space as a whole. Probably not a whole lot, but it's fun to dream. Speaking of which, please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good, please be good. Some people try to flex Charizard EX into the deck just because of fire energy being moved around. Don't listen to them, they're wrong.
Fires from beyond the grave. Abyssal flame.
Those tactics apply 2 basic fundamental methods. Hot and swift, can't be helped. I am my turn. Hey look, Hourglass. I despise you. Despise this L. Draw. His first attack, bring down costs 1 energy and auto knocks out any Pokemon that has the least amount of HP remaining on the field. It's worth noting that this can affect your Pokemon as well, so for it to be to your benefit, it can be pretty